before we get into the interview, while we're still kind of in college football mode, other than Penn State, Ohio State, what else do you think are going to be some of like the marquee games of the season?
Well, Ohio State, Oregon certainly is going to be
Mm-hmm.
huge coming up. And this year, USC, UCLA is going to make a difference.
Yeah.
Both going to be Big Ten, and they're going to be pretty major there. I don't know. Well, Georgia Clemson, I think, is early, so that will tell us how good Georgia is.
That's like week 2 or something, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
look that up. But yeah, that's a marquee game early because a lot of times you don't get good marquee games early in the season. Yeah, that's August 31st. That's Labor Day
Labor Day
weekend.
weekend.
Yeah.
I'll be at Dragon Con, and that'll be on at all the TVs and all the hotel bars.
Yeah, another one that's good to watch, they're not necessarily in the top 10, but just to see whether they're on the way up or not, is USC LSU. I think they're
Mm.
both dark horses to do well this year. And that's also Labor Day weekend. Labor Day weekend is going to be fun.
Yeah. I know. I've been working with a Ukrainian folk dance troupe from Miami, and we've been trying to get them up to Tallahassee to do a string of performances in like uh, schools and colleges. And we were originally looking at uh, October 4th, or like the October 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and we were just like told immediately that is literally going to be impossible because Clemson's at Florida State that week, and there's no way
Damn.
these people are going to get a hotel.
Yeah, that's definitely a problem in a lot of places, especially one like State College where it's all college town.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of tough. I mean, Mississippi is Ole Miss is supposed to be good this year, so see where that goes. And that's really a crazy college town. They
Yeah.
supposedly, in my book Campus Traditions, kept on being told the Grove is one of the best tailgating venues in the United States.
I went to
So,
a foodways conference hosted by the Southern Foodways Alliance when I was in grad school at Oxford, and the conference got out. It was like a Tuesday, like we all got in on Tuesday, and it was like a Wednesday, Thursday conference in like the middle of the week. And as we were leaving like Friday morning, uh, or no, as we were leaving like Thursday evening, we saw people getting ready to start tailgating, where like people would send like their proxies to reserve to like wait by the Grove so that at
mm,
like 6 in the morning on Friday they could claim a spot in the Grove for the guy who was paying them to like get their tailgating spot in the Grove. That was an incredible like ritual before ritual that I saw.
well, yeah, I mean, the other news besides the Big Ten expanding is the SEC,
Hmm.
which is always bragging that it's the best conference. And so this year, Texas and Oklahoma, and Texas, I think, is pre-ranked number 4. So they should be really rough and give Alabama and Georgia maybe a run for their money. And they do have a game with the Big Ten a week after Labor Day, Texas and Michigan.
Oh, that'll be
That could
fun.
break Michigan's season,
Yeah.
or it could break Texas's season. That or make Michigan's season. That I think will be a pivotal game.
Simon, I want to get
Yeah.
into your interview questions real quick because we have,
Oh,
of course, some interview questions that the sleuths prepared for you. And thank you once again for coming on the show and talking folklore and college football, not always in that order with us. Um,
yeah.
but we've got some people to thank before we get into your interview questions. And surely it's been a while since you've done this, but do you think you can kick us off and thank the sleuths?
Yeah. So Walter Camp is commonly cited as the pioneer of American football, transforming
Mhm.
the game from its origins in soccer and rugby into its own sport. Since its finalization in the 1800s, the sport has enjoyed a long and complicated history and cemented itself as a cultural staple, both at the professional and collegiate level. And it's its place as that cultural staple that makes it notable. This a center of community, really, both within the game and its players and its fans. Its ability to bring people together is even if you're not a fan of football, it is still something to note and appreciate. And us too, as with Folkwise, strive to bring people together, inviting them to share uh, an enjoyment of a central focus. And as as thanks, we ask them questions, give them an opportunity to share that knowledge. And these questions are lovingly crafted and stitched together, much like the colloquial pigskin at the center of a football game, by our wonderful sleuths. So I would just like to thank the sleuths for all the hard work they do in finding these questions and helping put them together.
And thank you, Shirley, for all the hard work you do setting up that. What were you reading?
I have done research on this one.
Yeah. Is that from your creative writing class?
I had to take notes for this one.
Well, thank you, sleuths. Thanks,
I was
Shirley.
wondering where you were going with Walter Camp.
Every time I ask Shirley to thank the sleuths, I always hold my breath because I know it's never gonna. It's gonna zig when I think it's gonna zag. We already have chat thanking the sleuths. I guess they're really thanking Shirley with that. But I think with that, we'll get right into your questions, Simon. And because we were playing College Football 25, our first question has to do with campus traditions. And what we'd like to know is, how has your connection to campus traditions changed over the course of your professional life cycle, from student to professor and now to an administrator?
Quite a bit, yeah. As a student, I did think this was what to do, things to do on campus. And then you come on the campus, and some of the traditions seem strange. At Binghamton University, there was a stepping on the coat ritual. And I was wondering, what do you mean stepping on the coat? And because it's cold there, and so they would just gather on this bridge. It's always icy, and then ritually step on coats. So my first semester of my freshman year, I took a course on folklore that changed my life.
Mm.
And the professor there was a guy by the name of Bill Nicolaisen. Some of you may know. The way that he was different, I think, from other professors is that I would see him on campus. He was very engaged. So you'd see him in the cafeteria, you'd see him in the pool, him in the gym, whatever. I guess it was real close to his house or something. And so we'd walk by and have conversations. I didn't think you could have conversations with professors. Right? So yeah, in folklore, is this stepping on the coat just Binghamton, or is it worldwide? Is it a global tradition? And he would then use that prompt, a little like the sleuths, or a half-hour treatise. I said, wow, you can make that much out of this thing? That was the start of my writing career at that point. And then as a faculty member, I tried to emulate his style because he was really engaged with students. I thought it was important to be student-centered. And so then I would get invited to things and bring up these examples with the students, as he did with us, certainly. And then, but as an administrator, I suppose I get more nervous about it and managing these traditions that can get out of hand. And, I mean, one thing that's changed since I was a student that certainly has changed traditions. When I was a student in New York State, we'll have to ask how many people are my age or remember when the drinking age was 18. You could have alcohol on campus. 18 was the drinking age, and boy, things got pretty wild, and we have to enforce that as an administrator. I know, put a damper on the fun. I mean, that's one of the reasons why parties have all gone off campus. You don't have on-campus parties, and they used to be the thing when I was a student. So that definitely has changed the whole tone of things. But at the same time, I tried to do applied scholarship. And when we talk about creating community, which Shirley brought up, I do take that seriously and boost morale, have faculty engagement, and say, well, maybe we need to invent tradition. I know invented tradition has a bad name in folklore because of the nature of it being ersatz or fake, but it works. I mean, it has to be done right, and that's, I suppose, part of the analytical part. What is meaningful for students to just say build it and they'll come really doesn't work. So pretty soon with the start of the semester, we have our annual faculty student kickball game, and you'd be amazed how much buy-in there is because that was popular. And Wisconsin is cold. We added faculty student dodgeball, and that was popular as well. I guess the chance to throw a rubber ball at my head was very appealing to many students. We also have a snow bowl, but we had to discontinue that after my associate dean for academic affairs broke a couple ribs. So then we said, too much risk, when risk assurance gets involved there, because we would just play with no pads on the snow-covered ground, and it could get rough there. But kids loved it.
Nice, nice.
Chat wants to know at Binghamton, what kind of coats are people stepping on?
Oh, thick overcoats. At that time, the popular thing during, can I say the 60s? 70s was parkas. Any of you remember those waterproof parkas with a little fur around the hood before there were hoodies? Yeah, that was the thing. They were symbolic of huddling up during the winter.
Nice, nice.
And there were peacoats too, were a trend. Peacoats, I don't see them anymore, but they were supposedly imitating sailors. Blue peacoats, double-breasted. You don't even see double-breasted anymore.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, I think peacoats trailed off as double-breasted blazers did around the same time.
Yeah, along with bell bottoms. Although I saw some people with bell bottoms or extra wide cuffs the other day, so maybe that's retro or something.
Yeah, I think the kids call them flares now.
Flares.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, flare bottoms.
Flare bottoms.
I once helped describe what Jinko jeans were to someone, and the best way I could describe it was a flared pant if the flare started at the hip.
That's about right. Jeez, I don't know. This might be a hot take, but I'm glad those jeans still aren't the thing. That was like my junior high days.
I'll tell you one invented tradition, and this is a true story as a dean, where I came to Wisconsin, and they have a thing where they hand out plastic gold coins to all the incoming freshmen. and then invite them to go to this big fountain and throw the coins in for good luck. And then when they graduate, they get a metal coin as a souvenir of the college. So, okay, you've made it, you're successful. And I had a conversation. I said, well, that's a great tradition, and especially because it sets up this whole view of these babies because of the progression from freshman to sophomore. You go from being a baby to being an adult because of the symbolism of the coin of being feces, which you're then throwing into the maternal pool. You should have seen the looks I got. I mean, that was a interpretation that I had in campus trip, why there are so many wishing wells, and not all mine. Alan Dundee's also proposed this idea for wishing wells, but I applied it to why during this time when you regress and go back to being a baby after you're a senior in high school, and it seemed to make sense. But sometimes you can ruin things with or the participation with that kind of feel. So they're looking at these coins in a different way.
I know exactly the Alan Dundas article you're talking about, and that was about the same face I had when I read that. I remember.
Yeah, I could never throw another coin in Epcot Center, right, or Disney World,
the mall, even.
Yeah.
We want to change gears a little bit with this next question. Get into some of your work about theory of mind. But I guess our question is, how are things like whirligigs and carved wooden chains indicative of a need for a goal that addresses a symbolist theory of mind?
Oh my God, you got hours to spare. Don't start me in reading papers, but I'll give you the quick version of that.
Sure.
Part of what I was responding to, especially with wood carving and other pastimes, even quilting and other things, is that sometimes folk practices were dismissed as being meaningless. They pass time. Right? And there's even the book title by Glassy, Passing Time in Ballymenown, as if because they're stuck in time, they're just doing things to take time. And as I talk to people more who were carvers and watch them at work, it seemed that they were entering risks in making these things, so they would often disguise what their meanings were, but they had some real motivations for making it. That's what kept them going, because otherwise you make a chain with enough links, it can get pretty boring, right? So what's the motive? What's the reason? And happened to notice that all the chain carvers that I was introduced to or found were older, and they were all men. So a lot of it had to do with their creativity, their fears of aging, their fears of death. And then beyond that, after they got to know me better, then they started pulling out their erotic carvings. And I wrote about that after they were gone. And there's a lot to say about that. And whirligigs also, in a way, are dioramas that also talk about motion. And there's a lot of concern about, especially with older carvers and their impotence and their lack of mobility that is compensated for in these expressions, but they're couched as fun. And so this gives them some license to play with some of the things that bother them. And that's where you get into the cognitive idea. But the material side is, and the symbolist side is what symbols are effective for communicating to them as being expressions of them, and then what is received by the people who see them. And another link, sorry about the pun, that came through in being with them and watching them is that they had a lot of ritual encounters. So if we get away from practices, you're just interviewing, say, why do you make this? You've got the procedures. But then I would be out in the neighborhood, or someone would come in and I would hear one of the carvers say, hey, bet you don't know how I made this, which was a ritual opening. Of course, the young whippersnapper, they wouldn't say that to an older person, but the young whippersnapper would say, wow, I don't know that. Can I see that? And then they're putting it in their hands, they're trying to figure it out. And suddenly there's a power play in that ritual where the older person feels superior because of the knowledge or the skill that they're able to show.
That chat was very talkative during that answer about a lot of different things. Like outside of everyone seemed to have examples either of like the sort of erotic folk art, like wood carvings and whatever. People are like, oh yeah, relatable answer, or things outside of wood that reminded them of your answer. And Shirley, you said sourdough bread.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like having a starter.
Yeah, starter, and also, like, something to do, but there's an end goal in mind.
Yeah, there's bread in mind, but you have to every day feed it.
Yeah, like, the existentialness reminded me of lockdown and how everyone was making sourdough bread. And it was both practical and also, like, a way of passing the time.
Yeah.
Well, I would call passing the time process. And I
Yeah.
wrote something called the processual principle in folk art. And that is, we pay attention to the final product, we put it on display in a museum, or at the front end, the raw materials. So we show the oak basket and then the oak tree, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what was interesting to me was the process, what I call the folk techniques of how you got there. So part of the appeal of wood carving, when I said you make link after link, is that with each one, the trick is that you're cutting in rather than cutting something out. And that was symbolic for them of the way that they felt themselves. Or people have said about the sourdough bread that they will bake bread when they feel stressed, that there's something very comforting about kneading and working your hands and then having warm bread. We talk about comfort food. Well, how did we get to that comfort? It's also the process that's involved there. And I think we need to pay more attention to that. And with new technology, since we're all here in technology, that has become more possible and more feasible than it used to be with all the levels of recording that we have.
When I used to work for John Kay, one of the best pieces of advice he gave me was people want two things, especially when we were like, shooting or documenting folklore. People want two things. They want to be able to understand the entire process, and they want a close up of the hands. And I always think about that.
Yeah, another thing from a photographic point of view that I also learned was to get the orientation. So I always used to, early on, photograph 180 degrees. I'd be in front of the craftsperson. And then I would go back and say, can you tell me what you're doing here about the process? And they often were dumbfounded because that's not the way they saw the raw material or the process. So then I started photographing over their shoulder and then went back to, it made a lot more sense to them at that point. And plus you get the orientation then of the artist and what they're doing and what they're seeing.
Exactly. Great stuff. We have one
I
last kind of
enjoyed it.
we have one last kind of big question for you, and then we'll get
Uh,
into the fun stuff. But I think this is pretty big, pretty longitudinal question. And what we're getting at really, Simon, is that you're a scholar of not just folkloristics, but the history of folklore studies, and really, it's what I think you do well is its relationship to American societal trends. So, with that in mind, what do you think is coming next within the field of folkloristics?
I'm seeing a lot of different directions. Certainly, there's a direction that's very clear about a different view of applied folklore than was introduced in the 70s, and more looking at it as social action, a lot of talk about critical folklore studies. But and I recognize that as well as an outgrowth of public folkloristics. But some of what I'm working on or pushing, I mean, again, talking about the folklore and science angle, is trying to then get empirical evidence, quite frankly, for a theory of mind. And so some of you may have heard a presentation I gave about the new scanning technology, of imaging technology, and how now we can see what the brain looks like while doing folklore. I know that sounds like this is your brain on drugs, right? But I think that's critical. What's your brain look like on folklore? But with the new MRI technology, which allows for open imaging, and that will, and already I do have some references and conversations with our cognitive scientists. This is very exciting to me about what they started by what happens when somebody laughs. What is funny is an age old question. And so they wanted to see how the brain responds when you hear a joke. And I said, well, can I take a look at what the brain looks like when you tell a joke? Right? And is there mood alteration? Is that part of the motive that was always hard to infer when we would interview someone or children at play? And we always talk about developmental psychology and stages and what is normal, what is not normal, how play sublimates violence and this kind of thing. But we can actually see patterns in how the brain is sending signals, either telling you to stop or not. And directly as part of the strongman, um, um, I actually did some of this, of some scans of people feeling pain. I mean, in the folklore of lifting, if some of you are out there, is about how to get past the burn. There's a threshold, and then most people will stop because they'll say, this is too heavy or it's hurting me. But what strongmen do is try to do mind control and say, I'm going to overcome pain. So that's just a setup for, I think, a good combination of cognitive science and folklore to ask, how does this physical reaction then get translated or interpreted by the people or by groups as belief, and then by ritual and so forth. So that's part of it, and that's also an outgrowth of practice theory, where I think we were paying a lot of attention to originality, trying to show that folklore is creative, but then ignoring the idea of repetition and how much repetition is our lives, and how folkloric processes often dictate that, of what we decide to ritualize, what we decide to repeat, what we find boring, and what we stylize in order to keep framing it, in order to keep repeating it.
Very, very interesting stuff, and very, you had like
Yeah.
some stuff pulled from
Thank you.
practice theory, cognitive science, some stuff from, uh, critical folklore, like the evolution of applied folklore, and just a lot of stuff on very different fronts that I think anyone watching this with any interest in
Well,
folklore can get excited for.
I'll add one more since we have people who are into technology.
Sure
While
do.
I haven't done this as much, but I'm very intrigued by big data
Hmm.
because one of the things that computational folkloristics allows us to do is now talk about aggregate data in a way we never could, and to be able to quantify. I mean, just recently, Ashleman's folktale collection, which is huge and online. And someone wrote a program to index and structure that and make it countable, which is tremendous. So, that was part of the original vision of the motif index, and it was very imperfect at the time. But now we're seeing some real possibilities, and people are trying to find origins by talking about millions of bytes of folk tales in different places. And we have those big belief collections that were poo-pooed because what can you make of all these different items, right? But at least they can suggest some theses, that you have some conclusions based upon thousands of scanned beliefs. I think there's some good work. Tim Tangerlini deserves a lot of credit for moving forward on that. And of course, digital folklore is an outgrowth of that because that can be digitized, but also the study of virtual reality and what its relationships are to reality, the ways that people live. The old adage about art imitates life. Does video imitate life, or does life imitate video? There's that liminal space within the digital world that I think is similar to the ritual space that people like Henry Jenkins, of course, are doing a lot. But he's not a folklorist. He is a friend, and we communicate a lot. And I've learned a lot from him, and the idea of convergence culture, which you are really playing out every time you meet. So I'll be curious where the technology goes with certainly with digital sphere. And there are folklorists who are purists who dismiss that what we need to do is to find the old craftsmen. And I hope that I'm able to do both, but recognize that the new communication medium is digital. So if folklore depends on communication and transmission, we need to look at how people communicate, and that's certainly digitally.
That's right. I mean, preaching to the choir on that last one.
Yeah, it's just, well, what analytical methods are we going to use? And it is possible to turn all those YouTube videos into big data, and perhaps someone will do that. But also I did hear a paper that I found fascinating about YouTube. Maybe it was Libby Tucker, as a new confirming ritual, because then with a lot of the beliefs that are pre-digital, then people will go out with their video cameras to see if Spooklight Hill, they can actually videotape lights, or the also the legends about you park your car and it'll elevate on certain kinds of hills, or that kind of thing. And now the new teenage legend trips are with cameras, whereas previously you would just go out as a group and it would be dark and scare each other and whatever. But now they become a little like those shows where they try and find evidence of ghosts. But people are doing that on an everyday basis.
It's fascinating. All right, you want to get into some of your fun questions that we have thought to ask while we were doing research about you?
Sure.
Oh my God, queer folklorist in chat says just heard Dorson's grave rumble. Okay, he doesn't have to hear anything on the show. Okay, first fun question we have: what is your favorite treat to eat during Purim?
Definitely chocolate Hamantaschen, although I have more trouble with it. Trying to find a low sugar one as I get older, but yeah, chocolate Hamantaschen. I'm not into the prunes and apricots. My parents were. So you see, that's an adaptive tradition.
There you go.
For especially for folklorists who may be watching this, Simon, you were a one of the regulars at the AFS pandemic happy hours on Zoom. What was your favorite memory from attending those pandemic happy hour Zoom calls?
I think the conversation's about cats. I am not a cat person. I fully admit I don't even have a pet here. But yeah, I entered those thinking, oh, folklorists, we're going to have conversations about traditions and what people are working on. And there was one time where it seemed like each participant had a lap cat and walking across their face, walking across the keyboard. I'm thinking, what am I missing here? Is this part of the personality profile that I failed? You can back me up. You remember some of those kinds of evenings where it was amazing how many was it just the happy hour kind of people who have cats who pay no mind to being petted and just have their own ways of doing things, or is it a folklorist thing?
I distinctly remember Otis, Eleanor Levy's large orange cat, who would sometimes walk across the keyboard. I remember him distinctly.
So maybe, again, if I was psychoanalyzed, there's something about they appreciate the independence of these cats going their way, the way that they appreciate folk artists despite popularization and acculturation and modernization, nonetheless sticking to their traditions.
That's pretty. I think that's pretty accurate. At least that's why I like cats. There's a dog downstairs, but I respect the independence of cats.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But there definitely seemed to be a pattern growing. I don't know if it's still that way with their meetups. As become dean, I've been less able to attend, but that was something noticeable. And there were several participants who had multiple cats, which got interesting.
Oh, yeah. Chad is saying that folklorists need their own familiars. That's a pretty valid answer there too.
Well, that's also a reason I'll give you pop psychology as well, because I was also wondering after that experience why so many video reels were of cats.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And one of the thoughts I had is that the video captured what they were doing in a way that they couldn't when they were live. So you can say, well, here's my cat licking paws because I can't get the cat to do it normally, or I can't tell it what to do. And then they would share, this is the time that I actually was able to get the cat to lie still.
Yeah.
Accurate, Shirley?
Oh, she's nodding.
Accurate.
Yeah, accurate. As a cat owner, accurate.
Just, oh,
And
it's
so
so
you
cute.
talk to
You're
other
doing
cat
this.
owners about your videos? You share
I
the
don't
video?
honestly don't take that many videos of my cats. Not because they're not adorable, but mostly because my house is a mess and I don't want that in the background.
Mhm.
But I mean, there's
So
definitely like cats come up and then everyone's like pulling out their phones, so to show off their cat pictures.
there you go. There you go. At AFS, we'll have to have a cat video sharing portion to see how many times there's repetition and variation in what they record.
That could be cool at like the same time as like the folk song circle that people get their phones out and show each other their cat videos.
There we go.
Late night activity. I feel like we got to ask this question next because you queued us up talking about cats. Because I think that we have a question about your favorite kind of cat, which is, as a Penn State fan, do you think that mountain lions still exist on the East Coast or in the Mid-Atlantic?
No, actually, I wrote about a conservationist by the name of Henry Shoemaker who suggested things like eagles and extinct animals. If Daisy was here, she could probably go on because I gave her some of the references there. But
Sure.
uh, it's different from her Tasmanian devils there that
Or Tasmanian
there are
tigers.
legends, tigers, sorry. It may be devils there, you just don't.
They might get
You
to it
just
one day.
don't see them. But they add to a kind of mythology of Pennsylvania, those who are familiar with it, because it did become industrialized and changed, but there's still this view that it's still the wilderness, and that's one of the ways that you can affirm that. Many know that I was a participant observer in hunting camps because that's what men and women do after Thanksgiving. You
Mm-hmm.
go have Thanksgiving dinner and then you go to hunting camp. So I said, oh, I'll check that out. But the truth is that they don't do that much hunting. They do a lot of storytelling. They do a lot of making of fires there and talking about animals they used to be. So Daisy, next field work, go to hunting camp. You'll get a lot of extinct animal stories.
This like in my time on the Eastern Shore, that is, you don't go duck hunting to shoot ducks. You do it to put your waders on and have good stories
And
Yeah.
drink
and drink. Yes.
and play cards. Yeah, things you may not do at home.
Daisy in chat says they want to be the wilderness, which yeah, I totally agree with. I've told that to people. Most people out in the woods looking for a monster uh, don't want to be or don't want to find the monster. They want to be the monster.
Well, there is a kind of enactment or practice in that. If I heard a repeated motif, it was the strange noise. Could that be the one? What's that? Ah, that must be Elderbridge.
Nice.
It was just the Squonk Festival last weekend. I think I saw on social media, so it could be the Squonk.
Ooh.
Yeah. Uh, pour one out.
Well,
for our
my
poor crying
grandfather, my granddaddy said that he actually saw one and it was 6 feet 40.
boy. With that question about mountain lions adjacent to Mount Nittany, we've got one last thing we want to get into. And that, of course, is going to be your tier list. And Simon, I know you've watched the show a few times, so we don't have to really get into like the notion of a tier list for you. You're an old hand at this. However, Shirley, are you able to queue up what is the tier list for the audience while I get our tier list started?
Sure. a tier list is it originates from fighting games.
That's right.
And like most things, that which was forged in war has found a new purpose within peace. And it is now often used to just sort of, well, originally used to rank, I guess, viability of fighters.
Yeah.
It is now just used to rank things that are good in general, not specifically battle.
Yes.
But for this tier list, I do believe we are reuniting with some ancient traditions on the field of battle.
Yes. Yes. As Simon was getting at earlier, the only sport with possession and territory, and winning the field. So our tier list we have for you, we want you on a scale from, it's usually S to D, but you can tell this is somebody on the low end or on the young end of Zoomer or maybe Gen Alpha, using Ohio to mean bad, which is the new slang. Which is Ohio meaning bad, or like it's kind of uncanny. Maybe more accurately uncanny. Which is
An intensifier. I thought that was saying that they just don't like Ohio.
Oh no, there was a swear in here. I got rid of it. It said Ohio type shit. But on a scale from S, which is something you would grade above 100%, to Ohio, which is the uncanny valley, which is a dark liminal. Yeah, it is an intensifier. Okay, it said Ohio type shit. But that'll be our bottom rank here, or I can take it off
apparently.
Here.
Slang meaning of strange, weird, cringe, or dumb.
That's what I was saying. Ohio meaning cringe or strange. I always thought of it as like uncanny.
Fascinating.
Yeah. But S being the highest, Ohio now being the lowest. We want you to go through the Big Ten mascots and rank them. Are you able to do this with us?
I am.
All right.
I watch the Big Ten channel religiously.
Now, this one does not have the 4 West Coast teams on it. But the season hasn't officially started, so I feel like we're safe doing this for now.
Yeah.
So our first, do you want me to just go in order, or do you want to rank the ones that are your favorites, like off the top?
Well, it's a little like naming the 7 dwarfs. I just want to be sure that I get all. Well, we have 18 teams now. That's a challenge. So why don't you list them?
Okay, I think only 14 on this list, but let's go with it. First one is our Golden Gopher here. I believe Goldie Gopher.
I have to give that a D. I mean, Gophers, really?
We're starting off strong. Take that, Minnesota.
That's hardly fearsome when you're out on the football field. Yeah, look at the gopher.
Well, but
usually I hit it over the head.
They do damage to your foundation.
They do damage to grass.
Yeah, and then you want to get a...
Which is what your ass is going to be when you go against them.
Yeah.
Nebraska's got 2 here because I believe they have both Herbie Husker and Lil Red. But we can start with Herbie Husker from Nebraska.
Herbie Husker can be a C because they have that strongman kind of look.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that good farm cornbread kind of strength there. But nonetheless, I mean, the problem is with a lot of these human kinds of figures, is that really going to be your model of what a Nebraskan is?
Well,
not inclusive.
Well, with that in mind, how does
we're going to have that with the Hoosier?
Oh, I
can't help but think of Big Boy.
We got a problem. Oh yeah, this is a big boy.
Yeah,
this is a Frisch's.
Yeah, that has to be Ohio. Big Boy is so camp.
Next up, we're going to Purdue, because this is the Boilermaker Special. This is the big train.
That would be a B. I like the industrial iron look. And we should have some working class, good old union kind of labor.
I'm with it. Okay, and you know him, you'll love him. He haunts my nightmares. We got Brutus Buckeye.
You know, a Buckeye for a face, is that what you want to think is admirable? I'm sorry. Yeah, your face looks like a Buckeye after you get hit. Would you walk up to someone and say, "Hey, Bucky face"?
Yeah.
Maybe. Actually, I'm going to be in Columbus next week, so we'll see
Where,
what the mood is. I'm flying out of town though before the tailgaters, I think, get there. I'm flying out Friday, so
where are we
they
putting?
probably arrive on Thursday.
Where did you say you wanted Brutus?
Let's make him a D.
Is it now? These go vertically and horizontally. So is this D
Yeah.
under Goldie or D above Goldie?
Below Goldie.
There. Okay. Moving from a Buckeye to Bucky, we got Bucky Badger from Wisconsin.
This is going to be tough. It's going to be hard when I go to work tomorrow, but
Oh dear.
Badgers, I see it's a little better than a Buckeye or a Gopher, but not quite a lion or a tiger. You know what I'm saying?
So is bottom C? Is that what you said?
I'd say, yeah, below the Husker.
There we go.
And
Moving
the
over.
stripes.
Say again.
Indiana's stripes.
We lost your audio a bit
Candy
there,
stripe.
but I think you
Oh.
were talking smack about the stripes.
Yeah, they're the red stripes. They're candy stripers, along with the Hoosier. We'll see if your Hoosier has candy stripes or not.
There's an interesting conundrum for the Hoosiers, but we'll get to that in a second. Because next we're going over to Illinois. We're going to Northwestern for Willie the Wildcat.
Wildcats are strong. That's a good A. Yeah.
Okay, solid A. Solid A
plus
for Northwestern.
They have purple, which is also passion, and they've got the marketing in mind. They need the team to match, but they've been better recently. Northwestern used to be the doormat, even though they had a great mascot in colors. The Northwestern swag is the one to get.
Yeah, the purple and black is so cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Speaking of marketing,
So many of these teams are red and white.
most red and white, red and silver, most of them.
Yeah, blood and passion. I mean, that's what they're after. You stand out. Yeah, the blue and white of Penn State is supposed to be royalty, but I don't quite buy it.
Next one, speaking of marketing, is the new University of Illinois belted kingfisher.
I haven't taken a close look at that. I mean, I still remember the Fighting Illini there. So you blow that up a bit. Let's take a look.
I think I can probably I can give you a here's the new Illinois mascot, still incorporating the feathers, but a bird instead of a less than charitable depiction of an indigenous man.
Yeah, it looks a little lame, but the beak is good.
The beak is sharp.
Oh, I don't know about those shorts.
I think it's just the way his
Wow.
bird legs are, you know?
Yeah, bird legs are not good for strength athletics.
They're not
Yeah.
inspiring.
Yeah. Oh, plus that looks like you just dropped a load. That picture.
Oh
Go
my god.
back.
Oh my god. Which
Oh
one?
my
This one?
goodness.
You see on the upper left. Yeah, the upper left.
He's got a little bit of a
Uh,
I think that's the underside of his wing, but he does have a little bit of a diaper situation going on. I see what you're seeing. Well,
yeah, for that we drop him down to a D. Yeah,
this bottom of D,
yeah.
take that. Oh my god. Uh
Get him some Malox.
we're back in Purdue this time. We already had the train, but now we got Purdue Pete.
Dupete's got that good jaw and a good hat. But
Mhm.
I wouldn't put the boiler right up with B. So let's say above the Husker. But maybe we can have some people comment on what is a real man here between Purdue Pete and the Nebraska Husker. And the Hoosiers not going to really be very manly.
Because as I understand, there uh is not a Hoosiers mascot. Um, or that is there's not a mascot for Indiana University Bloomington, right? There's not like a guy on the sides there, but they spotted Indiana IU Southeast's the IU Southeast Riverman for this. Gus Grenadier, which is the closest
I,
Indiana's getting to having a mascot.
well, I thought they
Hmm.
have on their athletic logos a Hoosier,
On the logo,
or what
yes,
they
but
depict
these
as
are
a
all guys
Hoosier.
in the these are all the guys in the
Yeah.
suits, and
Right.
main campus does not have a guy in a suit, so they have to draw from IU Southeast for this tier list, which I think is hurts pretty bad for me
Yeah.
to see.
Uh, yeah, let's put him there with Big Bob there in Ohio.
Ah, okay, we're safe now. We're moving on to Nittany.
Well, I have to say, I'm a little disappointed in the marketing of the Nittany Lion, as it looks as if it has lost its mane, so to speak. Or it looks more like pajamas than anything that's really fearsome. So I'd have to give that a C. Well,
See,
much as I hate to be critical, but it's a high C.
okay, see above the Boilermaker
Yeah,
and the Husker.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, uh, last five at least of last season's mascot. We're moving on to Rutgers. We're moving on to the Scarlet Knight himself, Sir Henry.
Scarlet Knight is cool. So I have to see if we're going to put him at the top, but let's put a placeholder just to fill in for the time being. Okay, for an S.
Okay, our first S so far, and moving right along to Sparty from the Michigan State Spartans.
Sparty is definitely boss. Um, let's make Sparty as an A. And my first job after my doctorate was in Michigan State. It was non-tenure track, but
Oh
I
wow!
like the environment there.
So
But
where
I've
did you?
been all Big Ten.
That's pretty impressive.
I've Yeah, I worked with Kurt and Marcia, Kurt
Mm-hmm.
Dewhurst and Marcia McDowell and their folk art collection, and working with 4-H out of Folk Patterns, and he sent me to summer camps up there. It was a great experience.
You said A for Sparty? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Is it top of A over Willie the Wildcat?
No, I like the Wildcat.
Okay. I love Sparty. I think
I
he's
might
cool.
I might promote the Wildcat, but let's see at the end
Yeah,
how
you can always
things go.
change by the end.
But yeah, show a blow up of Rutgers Scarlet Knight.
Sir Henry?
Yeah, he's definitely cool.
Yeah, Sir Henry's got he's got aura.
Yeah, and with the
Yeah.
axe there, he's. Yeah, I mean, it looks like they're cousins. They're cousins, but there's something about that look.
Mirror.
I think it's the smile. Like Sparty
Yeah.
is scowling and I think that's what Shirley's reacting to. Like he's got a grin. He's having more fun. Here's the real Henry Ruckers. But here's Henry Ruckers on a good
Very
day.
demure.
Oh yeah, I like how
Plus
it's the
the
guy.
eyes look like he had a little toke of Coke or something.
It's New Jersey.
Very thoughtful, very
It's-
demure.
It's very demure. You think I just wear this to work? I think we're Biff the Wolverine next.
Wolverine. That has to be with the Badger. Let's put the Wolverine with the Badger. It's very Midwestern. I'm actually on a dissertation committee of someone who's looking at Midwestern trapping.
Hmm.
Yeah, learning about all these animals that we think of in Midwest and festivals that are associated with them. I mean, I'm waiting for somebody to have the muskrat as a mascot.
That's got to be like University of Maryland Eastern Shore. I had some good good muskrat out there.
Well, there's a place, Monroe, Michigan, that has a muskrat festival, as I
Mhm.
discovered. I've never been to it, but they have muskrat recipes, no thanks, and
I
um,
I grew up
muskrat art contests.
I grew up just on the other side of the Ohio border from Monroe.
Uh,
Yeah, it's like basically my
so,
hometown.
so did you attend the muskrat festival?
I knew of it, but I never went.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's the stigmatized vernacular at work.
Oh yeah, any weird stuff Michiganders are getting up to, especially with mustelids. I don't think Ohio wants any part of that. Ohio's not gonna brag about it.
Yeah.
Two
Not a
left,
festival.
and we've got our famous Diamondback Terrapin himself, Testudo, from the University of Maryland.
Well, Testudo deserves credit. Naturally, folklorists are for the underdog. So, how creative to have basically reptile as your, and the slow one at that, as your mascot for speed and strength. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's give him an S at least for now. Plus, there's a psychoanalytic thing because a campus tradition they have there
Hmm.
is to touch the nose of the terrapin. And in campus traditions, I interpreted the nose as being phallic, which got me some responses about that. But I still think there's something to that and why noses are good luck in a lot of different kinds of traditions. I don't
Is
know if you can blow up the terrapin, but
Oh yes, I
plus
can.
plus they've exaggerated the terrapin's features or its snapper.
Oh, so here's him with his own statue.
Yeah, that's the one where the nose is rubbed down.
Yep.
See there? So it's good folkloric reference.
So is he above? Is he above Sir Henry?
Yeah, see that beak? I mean, come on.
He's powerful. I love this one. He looks so broad and strong.
Yeah. Yeah, check out the shoulders and strong back, right?
That's right.
You don't have the backbone. No, you're right. I don't.
It's got something
I have a
else.
shell.
You got
What
something
do you
better.
have? Is she touching the nose? Are we going to?
This person's touching the nose.
You know what that means.
Um, so is he gonna be number one now for the campus
For the
folklore of it
time
all?
being.
For the time being.
Yeah.
For the time being.
Well, he's definitely going to be above. You got the Wolverine. Is that what is the last
The
one?
last one is Herky
Or did I
Hawkeye.
miss that? Hawkeye. Oh, Hawkeye is pretty cool. I mean, that's a bird that's done well,
Yeah.
unlike the kingfish you showed me.
He's got
So
his like grimace. He's looking mean.
yeah, let's blow up Hawkeye.
Yeah, where's Herky?
Yeah, that's imposing. Plus, it just reminds me of being in Iowa too. That you got to grit your teeth when you're there.
Huh. You like
Yep.
jazz?
He's not a bee. He's a bird, Shirley.
Yeah.
I mean, okay.
He does have thick eyebrows.
Yeah, but look at those teeth,
The
right?
the
That's
yeah.
not a smile. It's true. So it's different from Sir Henry, but it's got
He looks
gusto.
better in profile. It's the straight on that's
Sure.
Well, I
you
also like his
like jazz.
caricature. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's got
I mean, the
he's
Nittany
scowling.
Lion is better in profile, this logo, than it is in the mascot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's really just the straight on. Like even if it's like 3/4, it's like, okay, yeah. But it's like, huh. That's why
Yeah.
cartoon characters don't exist in real life.
So let's make him S, but above Sir Henry, but below the Terrapin. And plus, Maryland has a great uniform to match
Oh yeah.
because of that colonial seal. It looks like abstract art.
Yeah, Maryland's got the I'll say it, best flag. And so like putting the flag
Yeah,
on the jersey is just so much fun to look at.
yeah, yeah.
Um
So the overall winner is Terrapin, and I can be objective since Maryland was one place I have not worked. I've been there, but not worked there. But yeah, watching their games are pretty cool. They must like when they get uniforms handed out. Imagine the look on the Nittany Lions. Oh, blue or white? I think
uh
I'll go to sleep.
so we have the official Big Ten mascots tier list, at least until we have at least until UCLA and Oregon and USC and Washington start playing games. This is the official tier list of all the mascots in the Big Ten, and I guess we always
Well,
try to wrap it up. Uh,
yeah. Well, we're going to have a problem next year because then
Oh.
we're going to have three Spartan teams. So what's
oh,
the announcer going to say? Well, the Spartans are on the 30. Spartans are on defense. Oh, that was a great play for the Spartans. Oh, confusing the audience altogether.
the Spartans and Trojans get to throw down.
Yeah.
Um, Surely,
Oh,
I'm
we're
gonna
going to
say
have,
on a scale from S to D, has uh has Simon Bronner spent time at your school? Is what it is getting at. The least time he's spent, the better the mascot is. I think that's the theme
although if
here.
you ask me next year, I probably will vote for the Oregon Ducks.
The Oregon
I
Duck
mean,
is a
Hmm.
come
great
on.
mascot.
I mean, that's another one like the Terrapin. Maybe I relate to those kinds of lowly figures that suddenly take on life, right?
The I feel like we got to put the Oregon Duck on here just because he's got the greatest smile
Yeah.
in college sports. Oh, that's the Oregon Trail.
And, and and also the headgear.
This beautiful boy. I love him so much.
Nice.
I don't like the his the new muscular version. I like the Donald
Yeah,
Duck
Disco Duck.
sailor-esque. Yeah. I like the sassy ascot and the big webbed feet. He's got a beautiful face. Look at that.
He's enjoying the game, but he can do push-ups.
That's right. All right, I'm going to confidently say we've reached the end of your interview, Simon. Thank you so much
Great to be with you.
for coming on the show.
Pleasure.
It was great to have you on, and we had some great conversation about your work and about folklore in general. My only regret is that I could not get the Nittany Lions offense started while you were on. But like you said, come November,
It's going to be different November 2nd.
it'll be different
Gonna,
November 2nd.
We had to get it all out now.
Exactly. Oh yeah. We're getting the bugs out in dress rehearsal. Exactly. So for people who want to see or read more, and I know you've got plenty of books to read in a couple coming out, where can people find more of you and more of your work?
Well, Routledge has a sale right now, back to college sale, so I thought that that would be appropriate with talking about college football and back to school of 20% off. And Routledge, because they're a trade press, tend to have their books be cheaper than some of the university presses. And then if you're interested in an extra 5% on that, let me know and I just got a coupon for that, so I can throw that in. That's Folklore, the basics on there. So, as well as Americanness, where I do have a chapter talking about football as America's game and why that is and why the tradition never caught on in Europe. So that might be of interest. Of course, the practice of folklore with the University Press in Mississippi, which is a great press for folklorists, is still available, and I was very happy, whoever were the judges, that was given a Chicago Folklore Prize, and that I was proud of that work. So check that out. Let me know too if anybody is adopting that in classes. I'd be curious to be a fly on the wall of whether people are thinking that I've got something to say about that.
And also plenty of your books you can find as PDFs online, like Following Tradition, Creativity Tradition, etc., from the publisher.
Yeah, Utah State has been good about the digital commons.
Yeah.
So the meaning of folklore, what I edited of Alan Dundee's essays, is on the commons. Following Tradition is on the commons as well. I don't know if Creativity and Tradition is. I might go back
I think it is
a bit, but I would also make a pitch for the University Press of Kentucky, another good press folklorist, and I edit a book series for them on material worlds. If people have book projects that they want to pitch to me there, and they published Explaining Traditions and the Chain Carvers and Killing Traditions. You can see it's easy to come up with titles with my work, but they have also featured a lot of folklorists, as well as the Material World series, to try to build up material culture. So they made a comeback. At one time they were threatened by conservative legislature, but I'm glad that they survived that. In fact, they're thriving now.
Some of you in chat have already figured out what I'm going to say next, but everybody in chat to wish him well before we end this interview. Ladders in chat for Simon.
You do a Heisman.
That's
post.
right. Heisman's on screen. Ladders in chat for the Heisman and Chicago Prize winning folklorist Simon J Bronner. Thank you very much for coming on the show, Simon. We're going to take a quick break and be back after this. And Simon and chat, see you later. We'll be back.
Quilts have had meaning on many levels. Making quilts helped me to get a sense of my own space, sense of finding my way, sense of really working my way out of the labyrinth.